In 2001, a college student turned $3,000 into over $100,000. He posted the screenshot. It got 2 million views. An office worker quit his job the same month. His crypto account was up 400%. For a while, it felt like the rules of money had actually changed. Then the market turned. Within 8 months, the coin that made him rich lost 94% of its value. Not 40%, not 60%, 94%. He didn't just lose the gains, he lost the original money too. So here's a question worth sitting with for a second. Did he suddenly get less intelligent? No. His brain did exactly what every human brain has always done. It chased what felt good right now. And that's the trap almost nobody sees coming. Most people think wealth is built by finding the next big opportunity. But if you study the people who actually stay rich for decades, not the ones who get rich for a headline, the ones who keep it, they almost never chase. They do something that looks boring. So boring that most people scroll right past it. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why that boring thing has made more millionaires than every hot stock, coin, and guaranteed opportunity combined. The strange part is this: your own brain is wired to fight against it. Stick around. This one might change how you look at your bank account. In 1960, a psychologist named Walter Mischel sat a 4-year-old down in front of a marshmallow. He made a deal: eat it now, and that's all you get. Wait 15 minutes and you get 2. Some kids lasted seconds. One girl picked it up, smelled it, and put it down 12 times before finally giving in. Here's the part that made the study famous. Researchers tracked those same kids for years. The ones who waited went on to score higher on college entrance exams. They had healthier relationships. Some studies even linked patients at age 4 to higher income decades later. Quick pause. Be honest with yourself for a second. If someone put $10 in front of you right now or $30 in 3 months, which one would your gut want? Most people's gut says take the 10. That's not a character flaw. That's biology. For most of human history, waiting was dangerous. If food was in front of you, you ate it because tomorrow wasn't guaranteed. That instinct kept our ancestors alive for 200,000 years. But that's not the right instinct for a bank account. Here's a strange fact. Videos with titles like "I turned $500 into $50,000" get, on average, 10 times more views than videos about index funds and retirement accounts, even though the boring video is what actually works for most people. We are, quite literally, more interested in watching people gamble than in watching people get rich. That's not an accident. That's your brain, still trying to keep you alive on a savanna that stopped existing 10,000 years ago. The financial world doesn't reward excitement. It rewards patience. But excitement is what gets clicks, gets followers, gets sold to you. So the real wealth builders end up looking almost invisible. No headlines, no fireworks, just quiet, repeated decisions that don't feel like anything, until one day they add up to everything. But if our brains are wired to want it now, why do some people seem completely fine waiting years for a payoff? The answer isn't willpower. It's something almost nobody talks about. Let's go back to that office worker for a sec. Before he lost it all, he had a good month. A great month, actually. His account doubled in 6 weeks. And in that moment, something quietly shifted in his brain. He stopped thinking "I got lucky." He started thinking "I'm good at this." Psychologists call it overconfidence bias, and it's one of the most expensive feelings a human being can have. Here's a fact that surprises most people in study after study: investors who trade the most frequently, the ones most convinced they've figured out the game, earn the lowest average returns of any group measured. Not the highest, the lowest. The more certain you feel, the more likely you are to take the bet that wipes you out. And here's the part almost nobody accounts for. For every person who gets rich quickly and posts about it, there are thousands who tried the same exact move and failed silently. You never see their video. There's no algorithm pushing "I lost my savings" to 2 million people. You are only ever shown the survivors, which means your brain builds an entire picture of how common fast money is, based on a sample that's been secretly filtered to hide almost everyone who lost. Sit with that for a second. Every overnight millionaire story you've ever seen online was selected by an algorithm specifically because it was rare enough to be interesting. Ordinary outcomes don't go viral. Losses don't go viral. Only extraordinary wins do. So when it feels like everyone is getting rich fast except you, that feeling is manufactured. It's not real. It's survivorship bias, wearing a hoodie and holding a phone. The dot-com boom, the 2008 housing bubble, crypto in 2021. Different decade, different asset, same psychology, same ending. But here's where the story usually turns and where most people quietly check out, because what comes next isn't exciting. It's better than exciting. It's reliable. In 2014, a hospital custodian in Vermont named Ronald Reed passed away. His neighbors thought he was broke. He drove a beat-up car, wore a coat held together with a safety pin, and split firewood by hand into his 80s. When his will was read, he left $8 million to his local library and hospital. $8 million, from a man who earned minimum wage for most of his life. He didn't win the lottery. He didn't pick some genius stock. He bought shares in solid, boring companies, starting in his 20s and never sold. For over 60 years. That's not a fairy tale. That's public record. Here's the math that made it possible, and it's worth actually hearing because the numbers are stranger than they sound. If you invest $300 a month starting at age 25 at the stock market's long-term historical average return, you'd have around $13 million by 65, having only put in about $44,000 of your own money. Read that again. You put in $44,000. The other $115 million was made by time itself. That's compounding. It doesn't reward speed. It rewards patience in a way that almost looks unfair once you understand it. At first, it's invisible. Picture pushing a boulder up a hill. The first 10 feet feel impossible. It barely moves. Most people give up right there. But once it's rolling, it takes almost no effort to keep it going. In fact, it starts pulling you. Ronald Reed's fortune didn't look like anything for the first 20 years. Then, in the last stretch, it exploded. The exact same pattern every compounding curve follows. Flat, 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 and then a hockey stick. Most people quit during the flat part, not because the plan is broken, because the results are, for a long time, invisible. Ask yourself honestly, have you ever started a savings habit, felt like it wasn't doing anything, and quietly stopped after a few months? If yes, you're not alone. You just stopped one page before the story got interesting. Here's the sentence worth remembering. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and wildly underestimate what they can do in 20. But even people who understand this still fall into one trap. A trap so quiet it can undo years of progress without you noticing it's happening. It's 7:30 in the morning. You haven't even had coffee yet. You open your phone. First post, someone your age just bought a Lamborghini. Second post, a 26-year-old says she retired this year. Third post, someone made more money last month than you made all year. 5 minutes ago, you felt fine about your progress. Now you feel like you're losing a race you didn't even know you signed up for. Here's the thing. Nothing about your actual life changed in those 5 minutes. Only what you looked at changed. Psychologists call it social comparison, and social media didn't invent it. It just turned the volume up to 11 and left it playing 24 hours a day. People post the promotion, never the rejection. The new car, never the loan behind it. The winning trade, never the 9 losses before it. You are comparing your full, unfiltered life to someone else's highlight reel, and your brain forgets that's what's happening every single time. Here's a fact that tends to land hard. Researchers who study self-made millionaires have found that most of them live in ordinary homes, drive used cars, and are frequently mistaken for middle class by their own neighbors. The people who look rich online are, disproportionately, the ones who are quietly broke behind the image. Because looking rich and being rich cost 2 completely different things. The image is often rented. The freedom rarely is. So here's a genuinely useful question. Pause the video for 3 seconds and actually answer it in your head. Whose financial life are you secretly comparing yourself to right now? Now ask a harder one. Do you actually know what their bank account looks like, or just what their camera showed you? That gap Between what you see and what's real is where most bad financial decisions are born. People don't take stupid risks because they're stupid. They take them because they feel like they're behind in a race that was never real to begin with. In 1999, a young Jeff Bezos went on national television. The host laughed on camera at the idea that people would ever buy books, let alone everything else, from a website. For years, Amazon barely turned a profit. Investors mocked it. The stock crashed by over 90% in the dot-com collapse. Bezos didn't defend the next quarter. He kept talking about the next 20 years. That's the actual dividing line, and it has almost nothing to do with intelligence, education, or income. It's the length of the question you're asking. Most people ask how much I can make this month. Wealthy people tend to ask, where does this decision put me in 10 years? Those two questions produce completely different lives, even starting from the exact same bank balance. Here's an interactive way to feel this for yourself. Think of the last financial decision you made, big or small. Now ask, was that decision answering the 1-month question or the 10-year question? There's no wrong answer. Just notice which one you reach for by default. That default is quietly steering your entire future. Think about someone planting an apple tree. Nobody plants a tree expecting fruit next week. They water it because they trust the process, not because they can see the apples yet. Every dollar saved, every skill learned, every smart decision made under pressure, that's a seed. Some grow fast, most don't. But the people who end up wealthy stop digging up the seeds every week to check. Here's the sentence that might be the most important one in this whole video. Building wealth is rarely about one brilliant decision. It's about avoiding 100 small, forgettable, bad ones. Not buying the thing you didn't need. Not chasing the trend everyone else jumped into. Not panicking during the one bad year. Not quitting during the boring stretch. None of that makes a highlight reel. But stacked over 10 years, it buys something no fast money ever has: actual freedom. The freedom to choose your work. Do not check your bank account with dread to sleep. That was never about the Lamborghini. It was always about the option to walk away from anything that isn't worth your time. Somewhere, right now, someone is about to make the exact decision that the student made in 2021. And somewhere else, someone quieter just automated a small transfer into an account they'll forget about for 10 years. Both of them have access to the same apps, the same information, and the same market. The only difference is which question they're answering: how fast or how long. We've walked through a custodian who quietly built $8 million nobody knew about. A billionaire who was mocked on TV for a decade before anyone took him seriously. A statistic that says the more confident you feel in a trade, the more likely you are to lose. And a marshmallow that, somehow, predicted decades of a person's future. Different stories, same underlying truth. Fast money asks you to be right once under pressure. Slow wealth only asks you not to quit. Here's the last thing worth remembering, and it's the one thing you can actually act on today. You don't need a better opportunity. You need a boring decision repeated for longer than feels reasonable. So don't ask how I get rich fast. Ask what small decision I could repeat for the next 10 years, and am I willing to feel invisible while I do it? Because that question, quietly answered, has built more real wealth than every shortcut in history combined. Fast money is exciting for a season. Slow wealth is the only kind that's still there when the season ends.